Is it on?
Yep.
Okay. Welcome to the Board of Water Resources briefing meeting. Glad to have everybody here today in lovely Jordan Valley Water Conservancy District Education Center. It's exciting. I've never been in this building, so this is a first for me. But I did have instructions to drive to the end of the parking lot and find my way around, so I did it. Joel. Why don't we introduce ourselves? I'm Mike Davis, Chair representing the Provo Drainage. And why don't we start down at this end? We have our potential new member, almost new member.
So close.
So close. Dale Buxton. Going on?
Oh, not yet. Not yet.
There we go. Dale Buxton. I'm from up to a small town called Cornish in Cache Valley. So glad to be here.
William Merkley representing the Green River District.
Blaine Ibsen representing the Sevier River.
Dana Van Horn representing the Upper Colorado River District.
Juliet Tennert, Salt Lake and Tooele.
Tim Hawks, Weaver River Drainage.
You have the loud voice. We want to excuse Bryden Steed and Spencer Jones today from our meeting, and they won't be with us. Candace?
Great. Good morning, Candace Hassenjaeger, our staff with us today. Well, we have an extra special guest, Todd Adams, the Deputy Director of the Department of Natural Resources, Joel Williams, Shalane DiBernardi is, oh, there you are. I was like, I saw you online. Todd Stonley's with us online. We have Marisa Egbert, Tom Cox, Ani Baynard, Brad Caldwell, Rachel Shilton, Jessica Chen, and Russell Hadley, and Sarah Schechter, and oh my gosh, Jack. Gosh, thank you. I just totally spaced it. Welcome. Thank you. Thank you too much.
Great. Thank you. And special thanks to all the staff. Everyone is just so supportive and wonderful. And there's one more thing.
And I cannot forget our amazing AV team. Seth Majors is here, and I heard Carmen McDonald back at DNR. Am I missing anyone, Seth? No. Okay, thanks.
Great. Well, the first item on the list is to make our new board member official. We have our revered Deputy Director here, this is Todd Adams. Todd, if you want to go ahead and take a moment.
Sure. It's exciting to be here with you today. Seth, is this okay right here? Okay, I'll sit down for this. We'll probably have to stand up eventually, but it's good to be here with you today, and we'll swear in Mr. Buxton. It's good to have another Cache Valleyite here, so you know it is what it is. So with that, Dale, stand up, raise your right arm to the square, and repeat after me, if you would, please.
Hey.
I state your name.
I, Dale Buxton,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support,
that I will support,
obey, and defend
obey, and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Utah,
and the Constitution of the State of Utah,
and that I will discharge
and that I will discharge
the duties of my office
the duties of my office
with fidelity.
with fidelity.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Official. All right. All right. Sounds good. Thank you.
Dale, we welcome you here.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Now I can tell you that you're officially a member. You don't know what you just got into.
Thanks for that reassurance. I appreciate it.
Okay, discussion of board agenda items. So pull up my little sheet here. We'll have the minutes to approve. Somebody feel comfortable approving those?
Move to approve the minutes dated August 21st.
I'm sorry, what was that?
Oh,
I think he was just in
Oh,
the
so-
board meeting.
In the board meeting.
Oh, who will make that? Oh,
Who
this
will
was
make
the pre, this is the pre, okay. All right, I get it. I can
Tim
make
will
that
make the
motion.
motion.
Yes,
Thank you. Thank you for that. On to the projects. We'll have the review of the feasibility reports. Russell, are you doing the first one, Veyo? Okay.
Oh, we need the.
You have to be up the mic. Sorry.
Not loud for the people online. No.
Members of the board, this project's in Veyo, 20 miles north of St. George. The company irrigates about 476 acres. 40 of those are already sprinkler irrigated, and 436 acres are flood irrigated. The water comes from Baker Reservoir. It runs through a concrete canal that was installed in 1961, actually by the board, and it's been paid off. Their canal system's pretty inefficient, about 50% efficient overall, they're estimating, and they're losing about 380 acre feet a year. Water comes from the Santa Clara River through Baker Reservoir. Okay, the proposed project is to convert the canal to a pressurized irrigation system, installing about 2 miles of HDPE pressurized pipeline and meters and a pump station. The on-farm systems will be installed by the NRCS and funded by them. And a water optimization grant has been received, and the Department of Agriculture and Food have also provided a grant. Now, they've already purchased the HDPE pipe for the project. It's being stored on the site safely, and they're requesting the board allow funding to cover the materials already purchased. And once a purchase agreement is in place, they will put it out to bid. They have not started any construction yet. Okay, as shown in the cost sharing, cost estimate, the cost is about $2,150,000, and shown in cost sharing and repayment, they're requesting the Board of Water Resources provide $990,000. The Water Optimization Grant will provide $950,000, and the applicant will provide $210,000. And staff recommends the board authorize 46% of the project cost up to $990,000, and that the project be purchased at 0% interest over 25 years with annual payments of approximately $39,600. That is staff's report.
Great. Are there any questions from the board we have about this project?
Just have one.
You bet.
Sorry
Go
for
ahead, Dale.
I guess the new guy will jump in here. In terms of, this is taking the banker's hat off, or I'm putting the banker's hat on for a minute, but it says that your, the annual income is $31,500 for the company. And then, the payment's $39,000. How does that work?
They're going to have to raise their assessments.
Okay. So it's just going to have to be leveraged across the system for all the rest of them to make up the difference. The stockholders.
Yes. Only 40 of the acres are already sprinkle irrigating, but I think we kind of leave it up to them how they want to work the repayments. But I believe they're still going to have everybody, all the shares repaying it.
I see. So it's going to, okay. Well,
Was there, I assume there was a study determining the affordability and all those things that you went through, and so you were able to determine where this would fall?
Yes, we'll say, to a degree.
We did not go through Science Bank. This is coming out of the revolving construction fund. And so benefit cost analysis is not required, which goes through Science Bank. So we did not do that. That being said, we've had lengthy discussions with them and purposefully put in the income to the company. We purposely put that in the report to make the board aware of that. So you can ask them.
Okay.
Basically. But we've had lengthy discussions with them. You'll also note their water is very cheap right now. And so we've had to, trying to think, I don't know if it's the names of the people on the report, but there's at least 2, if not 3 people. I also discussed this directly with the company, saying you're fully aware that you don't even have the income right now to repay this. But as a staff, did we go with 25 years?
Yes.
As a staff, we typically go with maxing out at 25 years. And with the idea that, if we did it based on what the $10,000 reduced pumping and all that, or the O&M, it would take it'd take dozens and dozens of years for them to pay it off, which is not something the board looks to do unless the board chooses to do that. But as a staff, we do not.
Go ahead, Blaine.
Question. So you've discussed with them the costs of it. Are we in for any surprises? Are they going to come back and say, hey, we want a longer period, or we want they can't get lower than 0%, obviously, interest, but are they aware of your recommendation, and are they in agreement with it?
Yes, they know about the 25 years. They would prefer 30 years. Yeah. Well, are they going to ask for it? I don't know.
So will that be a requirement before issuance of funds that they have in place, raising their share prices or whatever they're going to do to afford to be able to pay this?
On the list of requirements, they have to have a meeting to approve this project, and the attorney has to opine that that was done correctly. And that is also part of the discussion that I had with the couple of the people that I talked to about that. We do not necessarily require, hey, show us what you did, as far as what you're planning to do. And so that is a requirement on bonds. We do not do that with purchase agreements.
But we can still ask, can't we?
Yes, the board can. Yes. Yeah. And so as staff in the report, we listed under one of the listed requirements that they have to have a meeting and vote on that. So.
And a year ago, they raised their share prices for Baker Irrigation Company, Baker Reservoir Company, and the preferred shares. They raised both of those substantially. So in anticipation of this project. So
That raises an immediate question. The loan application's in the name of Veyo Irrigation Company. How do they tie in with Baker Irrigation Company? And Baker Irrigation Company is not coming before the board today.
that's a good question. Baker is a separate company, but they own shares in Baker. Not exactly sure what the difference between them is, but there's other people that have shares, other irrigation companies that have shares in Baker.
I guess for me, it would be
Baker
appropriate
Reservoir.
that we ask them
Yes.
today how to explain to us how this is the trickle down of how this is going to be paid for. Go ahead, William.
Yeah, just one clarifying question. You mentioned that they raised their share price in anticipation of this project as a $39,600. Is that the result of the increase in anticipation of this repayment?
Baker raised it, not Veyo, is what this is.
I'm just
It's a
afraid
little
that
odd how they work the Baker shares. The company raised what they bring in to pay. Veyo raised their price for the Baker shares. Not exactly sure how. I'd say ask them.
yeah, okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? I know that I would volunteer if any of the board members need to inspect this to go to Veyo and stop at the pie shop while I'm there. Great pie
I have a
shop.
question.
Yes, go ahead, Dana.
Just for edification, paying for materials already purchased is a thing that's fine for us to approve. And they have to submit anything to us to show what they paid for it, et cetera.
Yeah, I've got all the bills that they've incurred for it. We would prefer people did not buy materials before.
Right. That's why I said it out loud.
Mhm.
Well, we talked to them about that. That's at their risk that they did that. We didn't know about that until they already submitted. Typically, what we look at, what we've done in the past with the board is do not start construction prior to authorization. So I know they're looking to get this going before the committal of funds, which at the earliest can be in December, which means the earliest they're going to have a purchase agreement is January, which means it's going to be closer to February to actually get reimbursed for anything. But yes, they will have to submit those invoices once the purchase agreement is done. The 2 or 3 people I talked to, I made that very clear to them. I believe I sent an email to everybody at that point. Yeah. I sent an email to everybody at that point on there, including Spencer, the board member, Jones, and made that clear. And the people that I talked to also indicated that 25 years is they are fine with 25 years. Those are the ones I talked to. Can we see? Let me see the list.
Who do we have coming here today from
The president and their engineer for sure.
Online.
online?
Online.
Yeah. And the engineer's great, but the engineer can't speak for the company on the finances. So I did send, it was both Jay McAllister, they list as the treasurer, Will Jones is the finance director. Those are the 2 I talked with directly. I cannot recall right now if I ended up talking to Stuart Bowler, the president, after, but I did send an email to everybody. It's talking about these discussions that we had and what the requirements are. Please note, they have to have all those requirements listed at the end of the report completed before we'll even do committal of funds, much less a purchase agreement. Additionally, what we typically do in the purchase agreement, which usually you all don't see except for the board chair, is that we put a completion date that we believe when they'll be completed with the project. We tend to be very conservative, generous with that because things pop up and they have to do something else when they think it's all done, or there's bullet lists. And then we say, okay, the agreement will say, we believe the project will be done in June or of 2026, even though they say it'll be done by March of 2026. We'll be very generous. And then we'll say, okay, we're going to give you a full irrigation season in this case before we start charging you principal payments. And because it's 0% interest, there's no interest payments in between. So if that were the case, there would be no principal payment until December, which is a typical month of 2027. So they've got some time also to kind of build up and get prepared for this. But both Jay McAllister and Will Jones were very clear. They understand that their water is very cheap and they have really been pushing to get their water increased so that they're not dealing with Band-Aids. So.
But they still have to get that approved by the shareholders.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
And they're aware of that. And they said that they really hope that this is going to now push them to have serious conversations about that.
Okay. Shalane, you look like you were excited to tell us something.
Just quick, I just also wanted to note, in addition to the requirement to have a shareholder meeting where the majority votes to move forward with this project, the board's purchase agreement does state that as the state, the provider of the funds, we have the right to require them to assess their shareholders enough to make the payment. So that is written in the purchase agreement. It has to be signed and notarized by their board, by their officers. So it may be uncomfortable for them to do, but provided they've held that meeting and the majority votes to support this project, like Marisa and Russell said, we wouldn't move forward with committal of funds without
Okay.
that. And once committal of funds happens, we enter into that purchase agreement. That is very clearly stated in the purchase agreement that you have a right to do that because it's a purchase agreement. You own their project and their water rights. So you have the right to require an increase in assessments if it's necessary to make the payment.
It's probably paragraph 18 or something.
Okay, any other questions? Yes, Tim?
I don't know, it's a question so much as a comment, but I noticed on the financial feasibility, and Marissa, we talked about this before, but I think for people making the case, they always have to show how they're going to basically use more water. And that I always find that deeply troubling because effectively what we're doing is we're driving, if this is true, so if this is accurate and you double your depletions to pay back the loan, then all we're seeing is contributing to a regional water scarcity problem. So rather than alleviating those problems, we're making those problems worse. And so I just need to, it's something that kind of catches in my craw all the time when I see that. And I understand that sometimes that's not actually the case. This is to try to, justify it. But there's not a place in the state where water is more dear than Washington County. So
We're not increasing their ability for depletion, are we, though? They're just taking it up to what their water right currently allows.
Yes.
yeah, but that is, just to be clear, Mr. Chair, that within your right, within your duty, we're not saying that this is allowing them to do something that is outside their water right, but stated in the application itself is we're going to basically double our depletions. Because if you're producing one metric ton per acre and you go to 2 metric tons per acre, you're depleting a whole lot more water. They have the right to do that.
Well, the conversion to sprinklers will do that as well.
Yeah. My point though is that it's great for that user. It's not great for other
That's
water
right.
users in the same system.
Okay, any further questions? Yes.
And that is a discussion that we are having, that we're hearing the board talk about, and a discussion to have. And then, on the side of the applicant, why would they put their own money into this if they weren't getting a financial benefit? So there's that, so anyway, that is, yes. I mean, effectively, they're going to probably divert the same, but over a longer period of time, and less of it's going to flood into the groundwater system. It's going to go. So that's the idea that we understand.
And I totally agree with what Board Member Hawks is saying, but most of our projects are that way. Most of what we approve is somehow improving their conveyance. So I guess that's something we have to kind of feel like if we're comfortable with that. Okay. Any further questions? All right. Yeah, Spencer's, Jones is not here today, so Dana has offered to make the motion for that. Appreciate it. Thank you. Okay, let's move on to the next one, which is the Smithfield Irrigation Company. Ani, I think you're doing that one.
I'll just preemptively say that everything Marisa said about that project is probably similar to this one. But so this is a Smithfield Irrigation Company, and it is located in and around Smithfield City and Cache County. The Smithfield Irrigation Company currently serves approximately 1,100 shareholders, delivering irrigation water to approximately 2,200 ag acres and secondary irrigation water to approximately 600 acres for lawns and gardens. The applicant diverts water directly from Summit Creek and Birch Creek at several locations, and the applicant also receives water from Cache Highline Water Association. through a large diameter above ground metal pipeline owned by Highline, referred to as the black pipe. And Brad Caldwell is going to be talking about his project, which is the black pipe restoration. So the applicant's system frequently experiences large amounts of debris and sediment from these sources, reducing conveyance efficiency and clogging shareholders' on-farm systems. Due to the potential clogging for shareholders, nozzles are often oversized to flush out the debris, which leads to overwatering. Additionally, there are 5 diversion structures that are deteriorating and need to be replaced. The structures need new screens and improved irrigation control gates. Also, currently, the upper part of the system requires a booster pump station to provide pressurization for that area. The proposed project includes the installation of a new pipeline, which will begin at the upstream end of the Highline's black pipe. The black pipe is located on the side of a hill at a 45 degree slope. So this 18-inch pipeline will follow the alignment of the black pipe. It'll be diverted before it enters the black pipe and follow the alignment. This will allow the upper part of the applicant system to be pressurized without the need for existing booster pump station. The 18-inch pipeline will then connect to a new 12-inch pipeline. The 5 diversion structures will be replaced and will include new screens and control gates. Sediment basins will also be constructed to reduce the debris entering the system. Additionally, a SCADA system will be installed. The redesigned diversion structures will improve water quality and system conveyance efficiency. The improved water quality will allow the shareholders to use nozzles on the on-farm systems that are correctly sized, thus reducing water waste. The addition of the SCADA system will enable continuous monitoring and remote control. The new pipelines will reduce the need for the booster pump station, which will lower energy consumption. And the pump station will remain part of the system for potential backup needs. So they're not going to take it out. They're going to have it there just in case of emergencies. The applicant has acquired a WaterSmart grant from the Bureau and a UDAF grant from the Department of Agriculture for ag optimization. Staff recommends the board authorize 30.7% of the project cost up to $952,000 and that the project be purchased at 0% interest over 25 years with annual payments of approximately $38,100. And this is coming out of the revolving construction fund. So that's the staff's report.
Thank you. Are there any questions pertaining to this project? Dale, this is your area. Are you going to be comfortable making the motion on this project?
Yeah, I'm good with that. I had the opportunity to visit with the engineer and to visit the site and have a pretty good sense of what they're trying to do. So yeah, I'll be happy to do that.
Right. And the motion's written there in your.
Is that little paragraph that's underlined down here at the
Yes.
bottom? That's what we use. Okay.
Yep.
Fantastic. Yeah, we can do that.
Yes.
Thank you. Ani, thank you. And this might be more of a question that I can ask the applicant, but just if you know, or if board member Buxton knows, do you know what like the breakout of shareholders is for ag versus residential?
I do not have that
Okay.
information on.
Yeah. I'll ask them if they
Okay.
could give them a heads up. And then also I'm also interested in the type of ag. It's probably the cattle mostly, or
Dale might.
Yeah, it's going to be field crops. We're going to have
It's
a
probably-
combination of alfalfa,
okay.
corn. We're
Okay.
going to see some small grains.
Okay.
I would expect to be that predominantly.
Thank you.
Most of the cattle are pastured toward the river.
Okay.
So
Thank you.
Any other questions? Marisa, did you have something to add to this?
Trying to pull up their application that shows some of this. See if we can give an answer.
Thank you. And like I said, I can ask them too. I'm just looking for ballpark just to learn.
You want to read it?
Oh, okay. So the pre-project acreage, alfalfa is 2,200 acres, grain is 200, and other is 250. Total of 2,650 in ag. And then I don't think they have it. They have residential.
Yeah, I don't know if we have the yeah, we might have the breakdown. We'd have to look at the breakdown a little. Okay. Number of secondary connections is 1,050. Average lot size about 0.4. So about, well, that's not the area. Yeah.
So there's about maybe 50 ag.
Yeah,
shareholders
about,
probably. Or is it
there's,
small, it's a,
yeah, so there's about 500 acres that could be irrigated. Granted, that probably includes the house too. And yeah.
that's great. That's actually just,
Yeah.
thank you.
And will there be representation here online, I assume?
Pat Draper is the president and their engineer is Steve Wood, and they're going to be online today.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, let's move on to the next one, which would be the Cache Highline Water Association.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and the board. How are you? So yeah, Cache Highline Water Association, project RE 501. This project is located in Smithfield City in Cache County. A little background on the company is they were formed in 2009 through a merger of Logan and Northern Canal Company and the Logan Smithfield Hyde Park Canal Company. They serve approximately 1,250 shareholders, and they divert water from the Logan River to approximately 8,000 acres. And about 55% of that is agricultural and 45% of that is residential. Some existing problems they've had is what Ani mentioned, the 36-inch steel black pipe. It was installed in the 1940s and is now severely aging and deteriorated. Its concrete foundations are failing, and the current inlet screen is no longer functioning. And I guess that brings up a story that we were told in the investigation meeting, is that they have a lot of debris of sediment and organic material coming through the canal. And there was an incident a year or two ago where a tree got lodged into the pipe and it started backflowing the canal, causing a lot of pressure. Enough pressure built up where that was released, and there was enough energy where the pipe lifted up off the foundation and landed back down. And this was all witnessed by the superintendent of the company. So that was kind of a interesting story to hear about the project. So yeah, that does pose a flood and safety risks of the pipe. And so the purpose of this project is to upgrade that 36-inch black pipe by installing a new fold-and form pipe, which is kind of like a slip line, but they install foam on the inside and the outside, and they'll lose about an inch of diameter on that. They'll also install a new traveling screen and a sediment basin, baffled chutes, and a new SCADA system for real-time monitoring. The total project cost is going to be $795,000 based on the engineer's estimate, and that is provided by Sunrise Engineering. Construction is scheduled to begin next week on October 15th in conjunction with Ani's project Smithfield Irrigation RE 500. Some benefits to the project are they will restore system integrity and safety, reduce maintenance costs by approximately $10,000 annually, improve conveyance efficiency, and prevent flooding. This project will conserve roughly 85 acre-feet of water per year through reduced seepage of the pipe. And that 85 acre-feet of water will be utilized downstream to users. However, whether this project was in place or not, the same amount of water would be diverted from the Logan River, so no depletion is expected. The company will work mostly within existing easements. One new easement is required, but has since been acquired. Some outside funding, they do have a Water Smart grant and a UDOF grant. The Water Smart is for $295,000 and the UDAF is for $200,000. And we don't have the full details on that, but they're not required to give us the full details on the requirements of those UDAF grants and Water Smart grant until committal. So we recommend that the board authorize 32.1% of the project cost up to $255,000, and that the project be purchased at 0% interest over 25 years. And they were able to qualify for that 0% interest loan because it is part of the revolving construction fund, and it is under $1 million according to board guidelines. There was one matter we wanted to bring up, and that is that Highline does not currently report water use numbers to water rights. And we know in the past that drinking water, that is one of their requirements to receive funding from them. We wanted the board to consider that, to possibly make that a requirement for our funding as well. And that is all I have for you. Any other questions?
Any questions for Brad? Yes, Blake.
Sure, I have just one question. Where their construction started to begin this month, I'm assuming that it's similar to the one we discussed earlier, that they're aware that it's at their risk with our portion. Yes, they have other grants, and they can, whatever the terms of those other grants, they can begin construction with others. But as far as our portion, I'm assuming that you have discussed with them that it's at their risk until they get everything all wrapped up that they have to do for our portion.
Absolutely. They know that nothing's set in stone until committal of funds, which is December at the earliest. So, yeah.
Okay. Other questions?
Let me just ask one, to probe a little bit on the metering question. And that would be a condition we would potentially put into the agreement, right? Or is that not right? Educate me on how that would work.
I think he's referring to the
Reporting, sorry.
Oh, sorry.
Yep, said that wrong. Yep.
We will put it in the committal report if the board considers that a possibility, yes.
Okay.
So this is the feasibility report that we go through all the details, and then committal is where things will be finalized.
Gotcha.
And if I may, we do have that in the director's report for the briefing meeting to have a bigger discussion about that reporting,
Okay.
not just for this, but for potential future as well. But it was a concern that we had when I was looking at the water rights, and I reviewed Smithfield and saw their reporting, and then I got to Highline and went to their water rights, and there was nothing there. And so it was a concern that we brought up.
Okay. Yes.
Just a question. Is their water use not reported by the river commissioner? Does the river commissioner not report their diversion? I would assume that that's in the river commissioner report that is filed with the state.
Mr. Chair, if I might.
Yes.
Yes, the river commissioner does report this. There are particular requirements regarding around reporting secondary water use as meters are getting put in. And I believe that's what you indicated hasn't been reported.
Nothing is being reported. If you pull up their data use, yeah. And they are trying to be exempt from metering. Secondary and Smithfield Irrigation also has already been deemed exempt, which is why they're doing this project. And I personally am not familiar with River Commissioner and all that.
So the river commissioner is like the distribution manager within a river system for the Division of Water Rights. So they do their reporting and wrap up their reporting at the end of every year. So those are kind of the main diversions. There are the requirement to report secondary water use as meters are being put in. And it's my understanding that's what we're talking about here, is that's what's not being reported. I did confer with the state engineer, and she would be supportive of some requirement to make sure they're up to date on their reporting to the Division of Water Rights to receive state funding.
On the secondary.
So Marisa, you mentioned that it's somewhere on the agenda.
And the director's report.
So just to clarify,
director's
it's,
report,
it's
okay.
it's during the briefing meeting on information to the board.
Yeah.
So we'll have a little bit more discussion about it.
Perfect.
Or we can have it now.
And I could, I was going to say quickly, but I'm not being very quick about this. Seth, could we put this up on the screen?
That's very pretty.
But Candace, it sounds like the difference here is the secondary water use.
Well, I'm
not
gonna show the
necessarily just
difference.
irrigation water use. Right, thank you.
I think where William's coming from, and I would be that a little bit too, a little pushback as far as having it be on everything for the regular irrigation, because that is already reported as required. And the irrigation, in my mind, shouldn't necessarily be forced to put on the database thing that the state has on the secondary type stuff. And I think that's the pushback I think that I personally have a little bit of anyway.
Oh, it disappeared again. If I can just, I'll just show you what I was discussing, and it's actually something I'd already heard. There's from Rachel Shilton and Jack Heinzman in our office. So this is Smithfield. So this is, I went in to try to understand the 850 acre feet that they were going to be more efficient and for Smithfield. And so these are things that I was looking at. So you see all this information. Okay. You getting
got
sick to your
every
stomach
line
yet?
of that, yes. Good.
You got it?
Yeah.
And as Maurice is pulling up the next one, so this is the required reporting. This is statutorily required that secondary systems report. So this is not talking about an irrigation diversion. That's handled by the river commissioner. But there is a statutory reporting requirement on metered systems.
And who enforces or takes care of that? Is that water rights or?
So this is a requirement that the reporting goes to the state engineer.
Okay.
Right now, there's not really, and I would have to double check the statute, but there's not a stick, right? There's not any sort of enforcement on this reporting, and we are trying to incentivize following state law generally in a lot of different avenues. So this is an option for the board to consider as we're updating the guidelines.
Okay.
So I went into the cache Highline, similar to that I did with the Smithfield, to try to verify while I was reviewing the report. And while I had already been told they do not report, to me it was very stark. It was striking to go from Smithfield to this. This is cache Highline.
So did I understand you right, Brad, to say that if indeed the board decides that on the secondary things that we ought to add that as an additional requirement, that wouldn't be in today's approving the feasibility, that when that would staff recommendation would come forth when we go to the next step and actually approve the funds and that type of thing. Is that correct?
It's not currently in the motion. Can we add that?
That the board can add that to their motion today.
Yeah.
That would be the
Okay.
best way.
Mr. District Chair.
Yes.
I mean, I'm just not familiar with this enough. It feels like it's kind of redundant to ask them to comply with state law, in order. So I'm kind of grappling with this, and I definitely don't want to throw a wrench in anything, but I mean, something we could consider is that an application doesn't come before the board to even consider until they're in compliance with state law, and we could be general about compliance. I'm a little nervous about asking them to with some specific part of state law. I'm not an attorney. I'm like looking at the yard. Do we open some can of worms where because we're asking for specific compliance with something specific, does that mean that maybe they don't have to comply in the future? I don't know. I don't know what question, but this is what I'm just concerned about, an application coming before us when they're not in compliance with statute.
The other thing is I would be a little hesitant making us the stakeholder.
Yeah. That's what, that's what.
But I can understand that our ability to process an application, we need that data.
Yeah.
So, and if it doesn't exist, say, well, give us the data with your application, which is in essence doing a similar thing, not
Yeah.
exactly the same thing, but we're not necessarily enforcing statute. So I don't know. Our attorney is going to tell me that's differently than what I
No.
just said.
So just to Juliet's question, asking them to comply with this particular provision doesn't mean they don't also have to comply with other laws.
Yeah, okay.
But I think that Chairman Davis's idea is also good, that we could include it as a requirement as part of, that they need to submit data as part of their application, but that's up to staff.
What does staff
Up
think
to
of
staff to
an
receive.
idea like that?
Up to staff to receive.
Oh, and-
Shalane has an idea.
Actually,
Since we're having the conversation, I'll just throw out that we do have these requirements. They're not, we don't put them in motion, but they're part of the board's guidelines that when it applies to water. So we require water conservation plans for everyone that gets funding from you, even if they're not required to have a water conservation plan by statute. If they're getting funding from the board, we require that they create one. We require that they follow the canal safety code. That's one of the requirements written into the letter of things they must do before committal of funds. This is just not, the reporting requirement is not something that's ever been there. Now, the way it's in code is once all the meters are required, and then the board does actually have the stick after 2030, right? But because the requirement isn't that all connections be metered until after 2030, then, so the stick isn't exactly there right now, but the thought is this is something that benefits the state. They're asking for funding for a water project. This could be a benefit to us and other state agencies and the water resources of the area as a whole. So I think this requirement is not calling out something that isn't really applicable or might be a one-off. And in fact, yeah, I think since we're in the discussion, we're talking about should this be something that's just added to the board guidelines moving forward, that water entities that receive funding from the state are meeting their statutory requirements as far as reporting and water conservation plans and all those sorts of things.
Mr. Chair, I'd also add to that, is at the end of the year, the end of the year, December 31st, and Jack's here, so he can correct me. All secondary systems are required to establish a secondary metering plan. So there are requirements throughout regarding how secondary water is used and reported, as well as is planned for. And in that plan, it's really their metering plan. So if they're not fully metered, they have to come up with a plan on how they're going to get there.
And I think I understand that. What I'm concerned, and the board can help me with this, is I'm unsure that we want to be the body that has to check that and figure that out. Now, in committing funds, we can ask that stuff is given to us.
And I don't know that we want it to be
Prior.
given to us. I think we just want to make it a requirement that, yep, like you said, a checkbox, just like we don't see the water conveyance safety plans. We don't see those. We don't want to be responsible for those plans and saying that all those plans are in order and have got to the right people. We require that their attorney tells us they've met the requirements of the code.
Right. But these are 25, 30-year commitments.
Yes.
And year one, there's a plan in place, and year 2 through 30, there isn't. I don't want us to have to be the ones that have to,
Verify it every year. I agree.
Yeah, that's kind of not our thing, I don't think.
Mr. Chair, I would also add, I do have a hesitation on having a separate reporting from the state engineer's reporting. In 2015, we went through a legislative audit on water data. And it was very clear through that water audit that having two sets of different data was not in the state's best interest. And so there was been a substantial effort to merge all of this, that we're pushing everything to the state engineer, that they're the ones that are required to have the reporting sent to them, and then we use their data. So I definitely would be concerned if we were asking for a separate reporting than what was required as part of statute.
That's what I meant to say.
I love Shalane's idea of just having a checkbox of, yes, you're required to, be up
You've
to date with
submitted your
reporting.
report to the state engineer.
Dana, you had a question.
I did. Does the applicant currently have measurement devices at diversions at least?
Usually the river commissioner requires that. But
They should. I don't know for sure though.
Because it's
can-
a lot of water.
That's Highline does.
It's over 100 CFS. I mean,
So in the northern Logan, northern Logan, whichever canal failed in 2009, that's when the Cash Highline company was created, combining the two canal companies. And at that part of that project, which I was a project manager of, they redid the diversion on the Logan River, and they do have measuring devices on that diversion.
and so it really wouldn't be a hardship for them to report said data. Okay. Thanks.
Marisa, you look like you just want to tell us more good information.
It gets tricky of knowing whether they're a wholesaler or they actually have end user customers. And they supply water to about 150 companies, anywhere from the size of Smithfield Irrigation to these smaller systems of 30 residential secondary connections. There was discussion with the Division of Water Rights, not a higher up, but someone that works with the secondary metering, and of a discussion that they would start reporting 50 a year, start adding 50 a year. And they were going to add, not supposed to, there was nothing in writing. They said they would add 50 systems in 2024, 50 systems in 2025, 50 systems in 2026, and nothing has been added at this point.
So I'm still talking.
Yeah.
What you're talking about is changing sort of the guidelines for all applicants. We're not just picking on these guys. And so if the Division of Drinking Water already does this successfully and says that you're required to submit the required stuff, I don't feel like that's a burden on the board at all, and no more than it is on the Division of Drinking Water. In this day and age, everyone needs to report their water use. There is no more, guessing it, and it's too important of a tributary to everybody downstream and in the state as a whole and the people in California even. It's too important to not do it. So I don't feel like we have to change the motion today. I feel like we should change the things and put it in with the water conservation plan and just say you have to do whether they're exempt from metering their secondary or not, like it's all kind of, that's out of our hands. So, but stating that they need to comply, if another state body that loans money does the same thing, I don't see where that liability hasn't been already fleshed out for us.
Any other questions?
Mr. Chair, if I might, I'm going to take a step back for a minute. So from the perspective of the company, at this point, they're understanding they're exempt. Is that their position?
Smithfield has received exemption from metering their end users. Cache Highline
It's not.
has not. That was part of the discussion that was had with Brandon Miller in water rights, that you need to be reporting
So they do
to
have
be
an,
exempt. And so that's where the discussion was, start adding that information.
okay.
That being said, they don't have to be fully metered or deemed exempt until January 1st of 2030.
Okay. So they do have an understanding of the need.
Tom just said they should.
Okay.
I have not had that direct discussion. There's a couple other people in this room that have had direct discussions with them on that.
I kind of agree with what Dana's saying, but with that, is that important for the board to understand that the staff has reviewed that information to make sure that your presentation is an adequate presentation? I'm not saying that it's part of the motion necessarily, but we really rely on the staff to say, yeah, this is legit, everything's in order and everything's here. I don't know that we need the motion changed, but we kind of need the staff to tell us, without this information, maybe we don't have all the information we need, if that's the case. We're dancing around this quite a bit.
Yeah. So currently it's not in the list of requirements, and
So we haven't required this in the past.
No.
But we use that information in the past. You've looked on these reports from water rights.
Not
before.
every single time, but I
But
did
once
on
in a
this
while.
because I need to figure out Smithfield, and I switched over to cache. Within our office and other parts of the division, this is important information. Rachel Shilton oversees the group with the water budget. And instead of having numbers, there's estimates that have to be done. My concerns came up with it being in the Great Salt Lake Basin and not having reporting. And my other concern, as my other hat of Bear River Development Planning Manager, is if we don't have numbers, if Bear River Development ever really starts pushing, how can we say there's a need for Bear River Development and the cost of that if we don't have numbers, if we don't have data? So that was where my concern came up.
Okay, Juliet.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I don't want to belabor this point, but I guess I've always assumed, I've just made an assumption that every application that comes before us is in compliance with whatever state law they need to be in compliance with. And it's hard. I mean, it's hard to know that completely, but I've just had that assumption. So if I were to ask you, for all of the applicants that we have before us today, to the best of your knowledge, are they in compliance with current state law? What would you say?
And
Would this be the only one that's
if I may
not?
go back, I did not know that this
Yeah.
was a state law because I don't work in water rights.
Okay. That's
So
fair, yeah.
It was something that caught my eye.
Okay.
Plus I had heard this concern, they're not reporting.
Okay.
And so that's when I brought it up.
Okay. I
to-
appreciate.
Yeah, to
I mean,
Candace.
my logic is going to a place of
Mhm.
maybe I don't feel comfortable voting on this because they're not currently in compliance, but I'm trying to understand, well, does that apply to everything else too? We haven't necessarily. So I'm going to just be a little.
Yeah, and I'm
kind of
not
step
sure
back
what
a
other
little bit.
laws that govern their water use that, other than what we already have listed in the
Mr.
requirements.
Chair, well, from what I've heard, they are in compliance with this law until 2030. They're not out of compliance. It's 2025 by my math. They got 5 years. They're not out of compliance is what I think I've heard.
Can we get
From-
confirmation on that? Thank you, Blaine. Yeah. Can we get confirmation on that?
Candace, you mentioned in statute, yeah. I don't know if there's a statute separate from reporting on secondary metering versus.
Yeah, Mr.
Yeah.
Chair, that thing, Blaine, thanks for, because that's what I'm trying to understand. I know there's this like 2030 thing.
But
And if
that's
it's until
secondary
2030, that
metering.
doesn't, but are they currently,
And I don't. Right. Yeah. And even if there weren't secondary metering, the concern was they're not reporting their what their water, yeah, what they're sending.
So the 2030 thing relates to the metering.
That's
But
to be
currently,
in
whether
compliance
they're
with
metering or
metering.
not, this is
Yes.
the requirement.
I don't know about it being a requirement. I had heard it's not necessarily in state law, then I'm just now hearing that it is part, and I don't know. Here she comes. Thank you.
So I'm going to caveat this with saying I'm working on the fly here. But there are two separate requirements. There's the metering portion, that's the 2030 deadline.
Yeah.
Then there is the state engineer's request that they begin reporting on all of their use, the secondary use. Is that correct, Shalene? Yes, and Jack is saying that's correct. So the reporting is a separate requirement from the secondary metering, which is the 2030 issue. I think from a legal perspective, I think the board has the ability to say, we want you to be in compliance with the state engineer's requests, even though they're not necessarily set out in statute as you must do X, Y, and Z. I think that the board has the ability to have that check mark, as Member Tennant was saying, of are you complying with the state engineer's requests at the time that we go ahead and approve your project? Because we want to support all the state's efforts. And also, as other staff members have been saying, this reporting benefits us as well. It's not that we need to receive the reports. It's more that we need to know, are you in compliance with our sister agency's requests?
Okay, so we're at the end of the irrigation season. Can they even do that? Can they obtain that data and give us that information at this point of the water year? Obviously, they're not going to have that information. Well, I assume they're not going to have that information for previous years. Maybe they do. I don't know.
Our understanding, I don't know for sure, but hearing is that they do have data of what
They just haven't
send.
reported it.
They're just not reporting it. Now, whether or not it's a cumbersome thing to add 150 systems to water rights, I don't know. That being said, technology is pretty amazing now, and migration
So
of
many
data.
small companies, though, are small companies.
Cash Highline is,
It's not that small.
they serve water to 150 other companies.
Yeah, but the companies can be, they're like subdivisions, I am assuming.
Except Smithfield Irrigation.
I know in Wasatch County, if you deliver to a subdivision, once it's in the subdivision, company's out of it. So they don't know where it goes or how it's used. They just send it to the edge of the subdivision and that is it.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
If I might. So just to clarify, in 73-10-34, there are two requirements for secondary water suppliers. The first one, well, there's more than that, let's be honest, but regarding this conversation, there is a requirement by December 31st of 2025 that they are to submit a plan to the Division of Water Resources that includes the full cost of metering of the secondary water supplier, how long it'll take the supplier to complete full metering, and how the secondary supplier will finance metering. So that's one requirement. And then in section 3, it says a secondary water supplier on or before March 31st of each year report to the Division of Water Rights for commercial, industrial, institutional, and residential water users whose pressurized secondary water use is metered, the number of acre feet of pressurized secondary water the secondary water supplier supplied for the commercial, industrial, institutional, and residential water users in the preceding 12 months. They're also to report the number of secondary water meters that are within their service boundary, a description of the secondary water supplier's service boundary, and the number of secondary water connections, the total volume of water secondary water supplier received from the secondary water supplier sources, and the date of service during the preceding 12 month in the secondary water supplier supplied pressurized secondary water. Wow, that's a lot of secondary water. But to my point, it is required statutorily by law that they report. It's not in 2030.
This is every year by March 31st.
There was something in there. Who's?
I'm sorry.
It has
What if
to,
they aren't?
I was
This
gonna
only
say,
applies to the ones that are.
can I please make a
Yeah,
clarification? Because I think there is a basic misunderstanding here that needs to be cleared up. Cash Highline has stated they do not have a pressurized system that delivers water to end users. So they are not required to meter. That's one thing. What we're talking about, the reporting that's missing, is not secondary water provided even to their they should be reporting what's provided to their 150 shareholder companies, because trust me, they've told me they track that very carefully. They know exactly how much they're providing to each of their companies they provide water to. What they're doing is, while they're tracking that, they are not reporting that to water rights. So they are not stating. So it's not the secondary use by end users. It's not even, it is secondary provided to, and they've told me some of these companies, yes, it's an HOA, 26 homes. It's, so that little company might be required to meter if the HOA has a pressurized system and their own water that they get from Cash Highline, but Cash Highline does not provide to the retail customers. So they are not required to meter, but they are supposed to report to water rights the water that they are providing to each of their users.
So they have
and they're
150 customers.
Essentially, yes.
Mr.
So-
Chair,
Yes.
if I may, it sounds like, and I appreciate that clarification, that helps a lot, right? Because it sort of disentangles the secondary piece
Yes.
from this. It's that the water rights has basically said, you need to be reporting this,
Yes.
and they're not reporting it. They
Right.
have the data, they're not reporting it.
Yes, and if I may, Marisa just jumped up and said, so what you're looking at on the screen is Weber Basin. Similar thing, Weber Basin Water Conservancy District. This is who they provide water to and how much. They are a wholesaler. This is their wholesale list. So this shows the different water use provided to their users, and Cash Highline is not doing that.
This doesn't break it down. How much is secondary? How much is whatever?
That's
Just customers. This is how many gallons or acre feet of water.
Yes. Yes.
It seems to me, if I may, Mr. Chair, that it may be appropriate to modify the motion and just make funding conditional on reporting consistent with the requirements of water.
The Division of Water
Rights.
Rights. Mhm.
So
That seems an easy ask. They have the data. It's not a big, if I'm understanding correctly, it's not a big problem. They have the data. It's just
It's
actual
just a
physical
matter of
reporting of it. And we're not
reporting.
talking about the end users again. We're not talking about these small things. We're talking about a rather sophisticated
So-
water provider.
don't we encumber the water rights as we do these projects?
Yes, we do.
I would think we'd want to know how those water rights are being
And we
utilized.
probably hold these water rights already. But yeah, since we did their whole system back when Cash Highline was created, we took title to those rights.
That's
So-
done now, right? They finished that.
Well, they finished the project. I don't know that it's completely repaid. No,
Oh, okay. Okay.
not been completely repaid yet. So the board still owns them. So it absolutely,
I guess for
Good.
me, it's not unreasonable to say, just give us the data you already have.
you've got, not us.
Oh,
Don't give it to us.
Give the
Report-
data to water
report
rights
the
so we
data as
can,
required by the state engineer.
can use that.
Mhm.
That's not unreasonable to ask,
I
but
don't think so.
everybody's stated some things that I agree with, mostly.
Right.
And I don't want to be the sheriff of their report.
Mhm. No, I don't either. I don't think any of us do. We all are plenty
just
busy.
need the
We don't have
report.
time. Yes, we need them to report like they're supposed to be comfortable providing them funding. for this water project, we need them to report
to-
and
to-
tell us that they are
And
reporting.
I don't mean to throw this onto you guys, but I think that's something that the staff needs to say, you know, we need this board, we need this before we can present this to you for approval.
And I think that's why, while this has come up with this particular project, we are looking to make that a broader requirement in the board guidelines, because it does make sense. The purchase agreements all say that the companies you work with, provide funding to, have to maintain their water rights. This is
This
one
is
area
part of
where it
maintaining
doesn't
the
seem
water
like
rights.
they're really doing that.
Okay.
So yeah, I think we could do that.
Clear as mud?
Absolutely not. No, Mr. Chair, if I may ask. So if I'm again put myself in the company's position and say, okay, we have the data. Is the reason we're not reporting a lack of understanding or lack of commitment, lack of staffing? Is what from their perspective, what pushback is there going to be? How do we help them, comply?
We have a staff member, Rachel, who has directly worked with them and can answer that question. I
Okay.
can't. Rachel?
So I work in the M&I data collection section. I'm Rachel Shilton. I work with the analytics and outreach section. And I work closely with water rights for their use data for municipal and industrial systems. And that encompasses the secondary water that's provided within those systems. We have talked with water rights representative Brandon Miller and with Cash Highline. I went up to one of their board meetings for the Water Association with Brandon and talked about this. This was after Brandon's initial meeting with them, where he believed he had a handshake agreement, it's not in writing, with the operator, probably the general manager maybe, for the water district, that they understood they had 150 connections. That was a lot to do in 1 year. They would start 50 systems a year to create this water use report. So they're aware of that. They agreed that they would do it. They're not doing it. When I met with them on July 10th of this year, it was again to go over those requirements and to let them know why that data was important to the state. So Brandon wanted me there so that I could talk to them about how it influenced our water budget model that we used for the state and how it impacted our water use reporting for the M&I systems. Where they don't report their secondary water, I estimate that. I fully believe that our estimates are not accurate. They are estimates. They're good, but they're wrong. And that could be completely addressed by them reporting their water use. And it's not, because they choose not to. At that time, first of all, they said, we're trying for this exemption. Well, to be exempt, they have to be reporting water use. That's why Brandon is working with them. Exempt from secondary metering. They talked about what a burden it would be for them to do that. And we talked to them about them not having to report for all of those systems they deliver water to, that they needed to report the water use at that diversion where they send it to their companies, their partners, clients, if you want. Still are not doing that. They are still very reluctant to do that. One of the comments that they made is that their elected official is going to make this go away for them. So they're not going to be required to get an exemption. They're not pursuing that avenue at all. They believe it's going to go away. Exemption for secondary metering, but the requirement. Just now I looked at their water right for one of their water rights. And when we were talking about the district engineer in his report, what I found for that water right, which was an 1860 water right for Cash Highline, it said no data found.
Just one quick clarification. If they're not a secondary water provider, there is no need for an exemption. Is that correct? So why are they seeking for an exemption and at the same time arguing that they're not a secondary water provider? All they have to do is report their diversion off the river, and they report the diversions to the 150 sets of water users, companies that they, I mean, we're a wholesale water provider with the Water Conservancy District as well, much like we were Basin, not to this extent. They're very much larger, but this is exactly, we report to our 5, 6, 8 companies that we deliver water to.
Right.
And then they in turn report to the state how that water is used within their own company. So I just don't understand. For one, they don't need the exemption, but they can't be exempt from reporting.
For secondary water. Oh, right. They cannot be
Yeah,
exempt from reporting. That's right.
Yeah, we don't need an exemption for secondary water reporting because the individual, they say all 150 are secondary water systems, which I know is not correct. But those individual water systems, they would be the ones that would be seeking for an exemption if they felt like they qualified.
Yes.
But Cache Highline, as a wholesale water provider, they have an obligation to the state of Utah to report at the diversion. And to the chairman's comment, that's where that responsibility ends anyway. So what do they not, how does the state feel about a system that simply refuses to report their water use? I honestly didn't know that it was an option to say no.
I believe it's not an option. And so I think where we are sitting now, and I've raised this before, but this is the instance that it came to the attention of a body that is going to provide funding. And that was the question that came up, is why are our state agencies providing funding to an entity that is opting not to follow the law when it's not an option?
Well, I mean, I've heard a number of different excuses or reasons why they would not want to report. And it's typically either they feel like that data is going to be used against them in some way. And so I understand that. But from a state's perspective, that's fine. That's a different conversation to have. But if you're seeking state funding for a water project, it really shouldn't be an option in my mind. Thank you.
I worked with Brandon for 10 years, as long as he's been there, and whoever it was before, and reported this exact same data for my 1,200 plus customers that we had as end users, and M&I, and all the use for 3 systems: San Juan that got Grand County water, irrigation stuff from Ken's Lake, and our drinking water. And I managed to complete that report every year and go through the things that needed to be gone through. It is not a burden to enter those numbers. And if these folks are billing their people, like Weber is shown here, then even if it's an estimate, they can at least report what they billed them for. I will say, and I don't think I've ever said this, I am not inclined to vote for this today. And I'm not inclined to, as this is coming out, everyone was trying to be real polite in the beginning. I'm more of a cut to the chase kind of gal, as y'all know. If these folks are refusing to do what they're supposed to do because they're concerned about some sort of pushback, or maybe they're doing something incorrect, or maybe they're not, I don't know. But it's not that hard to fill out the water use report. Brandon's a nice guy. He'll even help you do it. 150 entries. And frankly, I think we should require them to put it back as far as 2023. If we've been holding their water rights for this long, how, can we require that they report on the water rights that we hold? I don't know. But I'm getting more and more frustrated as this conversation goes on, and I'm not really feeling inclined to obligate the taxpayers' money to somebody who is literally refusing to provide data they already have.
And Mr. Chair, I think there might be a middle road there, which would be just to condition approval on compliance.
Okay. Any other Questions, thoughts, concerns?
Yeah, I kind of like that. I mean, we could obviously make the condition that from here going forward, or we could find some middle ground that said, we not only want it going forward, but will you provide it for a number of years going back, if that's helpful to the state. But if the condition is just, you will comply moving forward, but then that puts us in a police kind of state a little bit to make sure that that happens. Because once we obligate funds, the funds are obligated. I don't know what the mechanism would be if they, in 2 or 3 or 5 years from now, decide not to report. Those funds are already spent, they're obligated. We can't get them back. Or we can, but it would be very difficult.
Maybe that we don't want to specify, it's condition that you comply. What that compliance means is really the arbitrator of that is water rights, not us. But you're right, and I think it's important to realize up front that we don't have a mechanism to sort of come back 18 months from now after we obligate funds and say, well, you still didn't do it.
Yeah.
Right. So that's maybe an argument for saying, let's wait until we see that you complied, and then we can move forward.
We're just doing feasibility today. We're not committing any funds today.
But we could recommend to them.
Will you?
We could recommend to them that if they have the data, that they go back a number of years. And if they're willing to put that kind of effort into making that data available to the state, that would make us feel, or it would make me feel a whole lot more comfortable moving forward with the funding.
Could we ask them to provide the data before the committal of funds? So it could go through today as a feasibility and then have the motion say that their data has to be entered at least for 2024 by the time we do it. I feel better about that. Thank you.
Yes, just like any of those other requirements. And that is something that as staff, we make sure all of that is done before we come to committal of funds and before we do a purchase agreement.
Thank you.
Anything else? Okay. Let's move on. We're to the Mosby Irrigation Company, a deferred payment. Tom?
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, are you ready for a simpler issue here?
They all start out simple.
Well, I guess you could get
They
as
don't all end
complicated
that.
as you want in this one, but basically it comes down to in 2004, the board committed funds to a project to construct Red Wash Dam in Uintah County. It's just north of La Pointe, which is west of Vernal. Well, funds were committed, the dam was built, and the funding terms that were committed by the board was that the project would be purchased at 0% interest over 59 years, with annual payments increasing from $25,000 to $195,000 throughout the years. 2025's scheduled payment is $92,500, and the applicant has been making regular payments, so there's not an issue there. The applicant, in conjunction with White Rocks Irrigation Company, has obtained a grant funding both from the Water Spark grant and from Ag Optimization for projects to improve their respective systems. The Mosby irrigation part is to put in pipeline in their feeder canal to the Red Wash Dam. The project cost of that part has been estimated to be $1,160,000, and Mosby Irrigation's local cost share of that is $116,000. So the company will be before you today to ask for a deferment of payment on the Red Wash project, so they can use those $92,000 towards their cost share on the new pipeline project. So that's it in a nutshell. Any questions about either project?
William?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Just one clarification. So the Water Conservancy District is sponsoring this project in conjunction with 2 others. And so we hold the the Water Smart grant on behalf of the project. And so very familiar with what's going on there. I don't know that it's a conflict, but I just wanted to make you aware that the Water Conservancy District is a part of what's happening with the feeder canal enclosure, but I still would, support the deferral.
So are you declaring a conflict or are you just,
I don't think it's a conflict. I just want to
Okay.
clarify. Thank you.
are you going to be able to
Yeah.
then make the motion? Okay. Any questions, comments?
Mr. Chair, just one quick question. Will that be added to the end of the term or will the payments be rescheduled?
They'll all be rescheduled, just all of them will be pushed back 1 year. So the next payments will resume in 2026. So from
So-
2026 through the end, it'll just be the same repayment schedule.
So just to be clear, are we adding a year to the term?
No, it's just delaying payments 1 year, shifting payments 1 year. So
Okay.
instead of,
Okay, all right, that makes sense, yeah. I mean, it's either we squash it and spread it out or we push it 1 year ahead. Okay.
instead of 59 years with just the 1 year gap.
Gotcha. Okay, thanks.
Okay, any other questions? Yes, do that.
I want to make sure, I think I made a mistake. So they're asking for deferral so they can put their cost share up for the irrigation project. And has that,
The board is,
Are we participating? And I know you said this, but are we participating in the irrigation project?
no.
Okay, thank you.
So this is just kind of to
That's
streamline
okay.
the process instead of
Thank
going
you.
through the whole application project or process
Gotcha,
for a
gotcha,
new
yeah.
project. They would just asking for,
Tom, thank you. It just took me a minute to catch up. I gotcha. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? If not, thank you, Tom. We do have also on the agenda withdrawal. Do we need a update on this or is this just something? Okay. We'll have that to discuss. That's fine. Okay, also we'll have a presentation on the cloud seeding operations. And we'll discuss the board meeting schedule. And
Will you make a motion on that?
we will need to make a motion on that. And so do we have someone that would be willing to do a motion on the board meeting schedule? Dana, thank you. And that brings us to the director's report that she'll present. Do you want to explain anything here?
Nope, I'll just give you the rundown then. So I'll save you from hearing it twice.
Okay, and we will have a closed session in that time, and Blaine will make that motion at that time. So any further questions? Okay.
We just have a few items for the board if there's nothing else on the board agenda.
Okay.
Shalane, do you want to talk about our status of funds?
Yep, I have a few things, and I will note that you will actually need a motion on that withdrawal. I don't know if you had noted that, so, yeah, and Ani does have a slide and she can tell you why it's being withdrawn and all of that, but it is.
That would be in Tim's area.
Yeah.
That's in Tim. Sim, are you okay for the motion on that? Thank you.
So status of funds hasn't changed much, and I'm sure you all, just every time you receive this, go back and look at the last one and compare it. But I did want to note there were a couple changes. We got some updated finance and accounting information from closing out the fiscal year, and some updated information also. Sorry. So the numbers are a little bit different than what were in your last packet. You can see we do have all three of those feasibilities today are coming from the revolving fund. So the balance there is going down a little bit. And the big change in the C&D fund, I'll tell you, is while I had put the 50 million, there's 50 million a year coming into the C&D, but being set aside for those Colorado River reuse projects, which you authorized in June. I had put that 50 million into the separate pot, forgot to subtract it from the regular C&D. So it went down a little bit. So the available balance in the C&D fund is not what I had listed at the last time. We still do show there's $65 million available, not authorized or committed for any other project. So we are still receiving applications and open for business. Other than that, not a lot of change. Are there any questions on the status of funds? Nothing really happening. Yeah, so if I could jump into a couple other items I wanted to discuss with you today, and I know we're running very short on time, so I will try to keep this brief. We have had some questions. You may recall Washington County Water Conservancy District had a lot of special requests when they came to you in June. And I thought we had kind of hashed a lot of things out, but they wanted, as they work on their bonding requirements and making sure they're doing everything legally, they're like, we need a definitive answer. And with $195 million project, I just want to make sure that we have your direction clear. So there were a couple items specifically. I thought we had all agreed that there was no way this could be revolving for them. But there was a comment made in the meeting of, we'll look into that a little more and get back to you. And so I just wanted to make sure the board is all in agreement that that money coming from the WIRA to the C&D fund specifically for Colorado River reuse projects is one-time money, not available to be used over and over as they see fit. And as a reminder, part of the code mentions that a payment that relates to a project, these Colorado River reuse projects, made from the Conservation and Development Fund on or after July 1st, 2023, will go back to the WIRA. So I don't think it leaves us a lot of option for doing anything.
They specifically asked for that.
Yes,
at the meeting.
They did. Yeah. And that's, I wanted to confirm most of you were in agreement that, yeah, I don't think we can do that. Statute's pretty clear. If you want it revolving for you, you got to go get the law changed because it's as it's written. But there was one board member who had commented, well, we'll see what we can do. And I'm like, okay, so I just wanted to come back to you and verify that you're all in agreement that no, it doesn't sound like you have any leeway to even offer that, even if you wanted to.
I think, and I don't remember even who asked or said that, but I think the question a little bit was, did we really understand the WIRA completely? And I think that was really more the question at the time than that was my interpretation.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, may I? So what were the terms on the 195 million?
$195 million. I believe we gave them 0.5% interest and a 40-year repayment term. Okay. So yes, it was better than staff's recommendation. They had requested 0.5%. They requested 50-year repayment, but the bond statute requires 40 years. So that isn't even in your purview to offer either. So it was 0.5% in 40 years.
And at the time they were looking that once a significant portion of that was paid back, they wanted to borrow that back
against it again.
Yeah.
And what you're saying is that as repayments come in.
That's not our decision. That goes back to Wyra.
Yes.
Because they stop by the C&D fund just on the way back, but then ultimately they land in Wyra, is that correct?
Yes, that is correct, because these funds ultimately, they started in Wyra, are being transferred to the Conservation and Development Fund for these projects specifically. But then it clearly states that that any payment made on those projects goes back to the Wyra. So yes, you're right. It'll go into the C&D fund and then be transferred back to the Wyra account, which is restricted. That's what water infrastructure restricted account.
So if they wanted to use that money again, they would have to make an additional
Another
request,
application.
just like
Yep.
they did with the 190.
Exactly.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so it seems like we're in somewhat of agreement there. There is one other question we didn't address specifically. It came up, but I don't feel like we got a real good answer. And it was regarding their request to have a taxable bond versus a tax exempt bond. It's not in the board's requirements, but it's one of our standard requests that bonds be tax exempt. And I'll give you the reason from our attorney, and then we can have a little discussion. If the board is ever required to sell their bonds, a tax exempt bond is more valuable than a taxable bond. And that's only been required by the legislature has required the Board of Water Resources to do that one time. That was to finance the Quail Creek project after the failure. So the board has been directed by the legislature one time to sell some bonds in its portfolio and to be able to finance the Quail Creek project. However, in this case, as the code states, any payment made on this loan goes back to the Wyra. Our attorney agrees that it's not really the same circumstance, but taxable is a benefit to the district. So we don't feel like it would be a detriment in this case to allow a taxable bond simply because of the repayment structure that's dictated by code. But we, being such a large amount, staff didn't want to make that decision without you.
Did Wyra have any requirements pertaining to whether it's taxable or non-taxable?
No.
We wouldn't ever have to sell it, or that we wouldn't ever have to.
I
have that
can't
opportunity.
see, right. I can't see how you would unless the law was changed, because any payment that comes in
Goes right
would
back to
not
them.
be available for other projects. It would be sent to the Wyra. So you couldn't, this is one I don't think you could be told, sell that bond to finance another project, because it would have to be a Wyra project and.
Right.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair, one question. You mentioned that the Water Conservancy District would prefer
Taxable.
a taxable, but don't the taxable bonds typically carry a higher interest rate?
Well, not from you. That's the nice thing is your interest rate is the interest rate. What it comes down to, and I'm not a finance person, so
That's why I'm sitting next to Bill.
some of them can chime in if they want to. They had a whole discussion about arbitrage and what has to go back to the federal government if it's tax exempt versus taxable, that it's a benefit to them. I don't fully understand it. Juliet's shaking her head.
I'm not sure that I can provide a lot of clarity. And of course we could ask Jonathan Ward from Science to explain it, but I know that I have been part of deals where it's however the structuring works, it does make sense to use taxable sometimes. So again, I know that's not maybe instilling a lot of confidence, but I know that I've like participated in deals, like public deals where it made sense to structure in some of the taxable. So I don't, other than just confirming that this is not unusual, or this is not highly unusual. That's all I can add.
Well, and as a district, we've used both, and with the arbitrage issue, I think it has more to do with how the funds are spent and the percentage of drawdown over time.
Okay.
And so I think, yeah, they're protected more if it's a taxable because they avoid that issue.
Okay. And so that is their request. Does anyone seem to have an issue with that? No. Okay, and then there was one final issue, I think, not a big issue, but regarding subordination. What, do you remember their exact request?
Well, with all the number of bonds that the district is involved with right now, they were just wanting to know our feeling on whether these new bonds would be subordinate to the other bonds or we would want to have them at
On a parity.
parity. That's the word. And so
I think staff's recommendation would be request they be on a parity, especially in the size we're talking about.
Maybe parity with any
currently issued bonds for this project. I think they'd absolutely have to be subordinate to anything existing, but I think if they're bonding additional bonds for these same projects, because remember, it's a $1.3 billion project, you're providing $195 million. I would think our preference would be to be on a parity with other.
So it does go over a long period of time. So some of
Yes,
these are
it
going to
does.
be issued long before others are.
Correct.
Does that make any difference?
even the way it's looking is even the bonds with the board will probably be broken up into two separate chunks, and plus whatever other funding they need to get to finish the project by 2040. So that's our funds will be used long before, and hopefully well on the way to being repaid back before they even come up with the funding for the last part of the project.
Okay, so it sounds like we're in agreement. Taxable's okay. Parity, non-revolving, that's not even an option. Okay. Thank you. I appreciate that discussion. Next item, one more thing. We had a discussion at the last meeting about making these meetings more efficient, doing them in the mornings, starting next year. I mean, we'll do it in December because that's how our December meetings work anyway with the board luncheon. I wanted to get a little more clarity. I went back and so afterwards I received a recommendation from Carmen on our AV team and went and kind of skimmed through another board's meeting that is part of the Natural Resources, and also rewatched part of the discussion we had at the last briefing about let's make things efficient, and do we really need to hear all presentations twice? As we go, the briefing meeting seems to be the best for open discussion and lots of questions and answer and back and forth. So the other board that I watched has one meeting. It's called a briefing and a hearing. Now they're a different type of board, allowing permits or different things. So their votes are slightly different. It's not necessarily funding, but it's called a briefing and a hearing. They do their briefing meeting, staff makes their presentations. And then once they get through all the questions, they have a break. The same meeting goes on a break. The stream simply says they're on a break. You take 15 minutes, half hour, whatever you decide you'd like to take. And then the board or hearing is much shortened, where staff wouldn't have to make their entire presentation again. They could maybe do a short summary, like what's on the front page of your report. The simple, this is the project, as they show you the map, and then show you the cost sharing, then allow for the applicant to make their request if they have one, any presentation they might like to make. You have your questions, discussions, and make your decision, but it might make things a little more efficient if you were open to that. I just, as Candace has said many times, we want to do what's best for this board to accomplish the tasks that we need to accomplish in a manner that is efficient for everyone. And we still want to be transparent, because even now, both meetings are open public meetings. But it just feels like maybe there's some redundancy that doesn't fully need to happen. So I would love to hear your thoughts.
How does Carmen feel about that? Does she like, which one does she like better?
Yeah, Carmen has actually asked me multiple times, would you guys like just one link, like one meeting, you know, not have to post two different things to YouTube? We would have to make
It's not only
modifications.
that, it's the public meeting notice website. It's all the work that has to be done on the division's website for links to the YouTube, links to all the stuff. I can see how one meeting would be easier. And my personal suggestion is let's give it a shot. If she's already used to running it, it doesn't sound like the staff, it will be a hardship. You guys will be here for the same amount of time as we are, so it doesn't matter. And, you know, if the applicants aren't put out by, you know, if they can just be told that they can join anytime, if they want to skip how
We
the sausage
expect
is
it,
made,
yes.
that by noon, you know, or whatever, that will be reconvening the meeting at a hard time.
Yes.
That's I'm perfectly okay with giving it a try and see how we think about it.
Okay. Yeah, I think the biggest change would be us changing our agenda to be one agenda instead of two separate. And we'd still, I think one of the big questions is, would you want, so these extra things like the cloud seeding update, would you still want that to be in your regular board meeting and leave the briefing to more of a work session where you get staff's presentation and can ask all the questions you like and work through those things, and then allow for those other presentations like the NRCS snow report when they start, if they start, if we have federal
Thinking
employees
positive, come
allowed
on.
to do that. So,
I think whatever's less of a, you know, an issue, like if we got through all the reports like we just did, and then between the break and starting the next meeting did the reporty stuff. I don't know. What does everybody else think?
Dale's new. He's just like, sure, whatever.
I mean, don't get me wrong. At the last meeting, I am a fan of the briefing meeting, but if we just have the briefing meeting and we don't call it two separate meetings, it sounds like we're not really getting anything different. So I'm okay with all that, but I think staff can figure out when we do the reporting, and maybe it's based on, you know, people's schedules or whatever. I don't think we care.
Okay. All right.
The only thing I would look at is you asked the question about the cloud seeding and the weather report and those things. I guess my first thought is they're good in the regular meeting. They're in those minutes. Then that is the meeting that most of the public would address. I think that's part of what we're supposed to do is disseminate information to the public. And
agreed.
So that's the only thing I would say is I'd keep that.
Leave those
and
more in
leave
the action meeting. Sure.
The briefing, the things we need to discuss. I don't know. And I think, I mean, today was a little bit of an exception. We spent a long time on one project, but
well, because
a lot of them,
it
we
was a
just said
broader
who's
discussion.
making the motion and we move on and we're done and then we're ready for the regular meeting.
Okay.
That's just my take.
Okay. I appreciate that. Yes, Blaine.
Just thinking logistically, if I'm an applicant and we don't know how long the briefing meeting is going to go on. I mean, we're within 8 minutes now of starting
Of the
the
board
other meeting
meeting,
in
yes.
theory. How is an applicant going to have to sit on their hands and wait, not knowing when they're going to be there? I'm trying to look at it from an applicant's point of view. From an applicant, at least they know that this next meeting is supposed to start at a certain time.
Right.
And we would have to be very disciplined and get a briefing done. And still the applicants need to have at least a rough idea of when their thing is.
I
think
agree.
the way to do that though is since the agenda is one agenda, at some point you have a break scheduled and you can put a time for that. Now, whether the briefing fills that whole
Yeah, and
part
if we
or
have to
not,
finish up the briefing after the break,
yeah,
and that would work.
Then they know when it starts.
That would
I agree
work.
with that.
And that is something I had considered, because I don't want to make the applicant sit through all the briefing stuff if they don't want to. I have thought about that and thought even now it's a guess. Our meeting is scheduled to start at 10:30. We think your project will probably be presented around 11. But, you know, I think we could do very similar things if we say our meeting starts at 8:30. We'll hold our briefing probably until approximately 10. We'd encourage you to join around 10:30. So I think if I like Dana's idea to let's try it. And so, yeah, if you approve our dates, we can even shoot for that in December if
Well,
you'd
some of them
like.
might have their attorneys with them and we know how they're paid.
I'm a government employee.
Okay, thank you very much.
Great. We have two very quick items. Sarah, do you want to?
Yes. So two items of litigation to talk about. The first is the Great Salt Lake, Utah physicians case. We're going to discuss that today during the closed session, assuming you all approve us going into closed session. And the other one is very, very brief. It's the Water Horse case. We're still waiting for the Supreme Court to issue its opinion.
Great. Thanks, Sarah. And then we are just closing up our 5th application period for secondary metering funding. And we're working with entities who have not been spending their funds and pushing to the December meeting if needed. So just real quick, we're working through that process. So that's all the information we have, Mr. Chair.
Great. Anything else? Not take a motion to adjourn from the briefing meeting.
I can make that motion, Mr. Chair.
We have a motion. Thank you. You can just do a voice. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Or adjourned?